Welcome to How You Livin', a transformative podcast featuring best-selling author, inspirational speaker, and minister, Dr. Rick Rigsby. And now, Dr. Rick.
Hello, friends. Thanks so much for listening. Let's continue our discussion on leadership. No, not that shallow, superficial leadership that tends to drape a culture that is mesmerized by wanting to be entertained. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the kind of leadership where leaders feel it's their appointed duty to impress us with their ability to pontificate with an ecclesiastical excellence. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about leaders who have this insatiable desire to present well, hoping that that will carry the day. That's not what I'm talking about. Those things do define some of the, quote, leadership practices of this current age. But I want to talk and continue our discussion talking about genuine leadership, the type of behavior that inspires, the type of leader that inspires people to be better professionals and, perhaps more important, better human beings overall. Genuine leadership in our present day seems to have been replaced by clicks and likes and views, co-opted by how slick our brand is and how well we present. It's something I refer to as impressionistic kind of leadership, where we look the part, but that's pretty much it. For an American culture these days, it's all about how we present. I've long said we'd rather look good than be good. Now, while brands and cliques have their place, they do not guarantee genuine leadership. So let's continue with how I define genuine leadership. One who displays influential behavior in a manner that motivates and inspires others to improve their lives. Developing influential behavior, thus, is the key. This is the foundation for effective leadership. According to author John Maxwell, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. I believe influence is the trademark of leadership. It's our ability to influence people within the sphere of our periphery. That determines our leadership impact. That determines our leadership capacity. Here's the bottom line. No influence, no impact. No influence, no leadership. The best we can do is impress. And impressing people does not equate to impacting people. I want you to listen to the words of Ken Blanchard and Mark Miller from their book, Great Leaders Grow. Listen to this quote. They state, "Have you ever considered what enables some leaders to soar above all others? We're convinced, after more than a combined 70 years of leadership, we're convinced that the path to increased influence, impact, and leadership effectiveness is paved with personal growth, for growth is the leader's fountain of youth." I like that. In fact, these authors conclude with this thought: our capacity to grow determines our capacity to lead. Think about that again. Our capacity to grow every single day determines our capacity to lead. Thus, one of the major building blocks of genuine leadership, a commitment on our part to grow every single day. I want to ask you a question. If you're not growing, what are you doing? You're remaining stagnant. And most would argue that remaining stagnant is actually moving backward, right? And so here's the goal, a very simple goal. I try to grow by 1% every single day. I learned when I was engaged with the PGA years ago, Professional Golfing Association. I learned that there's not much that separates the number one golfer from the number 100 golfer. It's about 1%. Isn't that interesting? And so listen to this. If we believe that growth is one of the major building blocks, then why not commit to growing every single day? You know, one of the greatest coaches that I have ever learned about is Coach John Wooden. He coached UCLA's men's basketball team. He was known as the Wizard of Westwood. Why? He took the Bruins to 10 national championships, 7 in a row. Listen to what Coach Wooden said on one occasion. Live as though you're going to die tomorrow. Live today as though you're going to die tomorrow. Learn today as if you're going to live forever. That bears repeating. Live today as though you're going to die tomorrow. Learn today as though you're going to live forever. I also recall Coach Wooden saying, it's what you learn after you know it all that counts. It's safe to say that most of us place limits on our greatness by placing limits on our growth. Most of us place limits on our greatness because we simply stop growing. We stop learning. You know what research indicates? A lot of folks stop learning after high school. Yeah. They start going down career paths. They start planning for families and life after school. Many say after that last final, that's the last time I'm going to do anything like that. And they just stop growing. They think that since their, quote, formal education is over, they see no need to continue learning in light of family and career paths. If that weren't bad enough, the vast majority of people stop learning after their college days. Listen to this. Researchers Rachel Wu and Jessica Church reported in Scientific American that, quote, after formal college education and job training ends, many adults experience years, if not decades, of reduced or non-existent learning opportunities, end quote. Also, evidence supports that people tend to read less as they get older. The big 2 reasons these researchers say why people stop learning, they say people have reported these 2 variables. Number 1, I don't have time to learn. Boy, what a joke. And number 2, I don't like learning. You know, I'm just looking at my own life. I hated learning when I was growing up. I was bored to death in elementary school, in junior high, and in high school. Bored to death. But after a rocky start, I finally got it. I was forced to learn in my early 20s. Let me explain. I've been a lifelong learner since my early 20s. It was at that time I was thrust into the world of television journalism back in the 70s and 80s. That was followed by 6 years of graduate school, which was followed by 2 decades of being a college professor. You know, I often wonder what would have become of me had I not been forced to learn back in the 1970s and 1980s. You see, back then, my job as a general assignment television news reporter was to learn about my subjects. Think about this. I had a minimum of 2 subjects that I had to learn about every single day. So one day I'm learning about local politics. The next day I'm learning about how brown rot affects the peach crop. Brown rot, the residual effects of late summer rain, how it can devastate peaches. The next day, I'm learning about zoning ordinances. The next day, I am learning about the entertainment world as I interview an Academy Award winner. Every day as a general assignment television news reporter, I had to learn or I would get left behind. What I didn't realize as a child, I would soon discover as an adult. I love learning. I got a kick out of learning. I got a high from learning. I love learning. You know what? Listen to me carefully. This revelation, especially if you happen to be a teacher, I want you to listen to this carefully. This revelation that came later in my life that I love learning, it shaped my teaching career. I was guided by the belief that there is no such thing as a boring subject, only boring teachers. Come on, y'all. No such thing as a boring topic, just a boring approach to that topic. I also held tightly to the words of one of my heroes, Mark Twain, who said on one occasion that I've never allowed my schooling to get in the way of my education. You see, I discovered that opportunities to learn exists everywhere if we will simply open our minds and open our eyes. Can I give you a classic example? Part of my duties as a television reporter from time to time was to cover major sporting events, which I loved. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area in Northern California, and I grew up being a San Francisco Giants fan, a San Francisco 49ers fan, an Oakland Raiders fan, an Oakland A's fan. I loved it. So now, every once in a while, I get to cover one of these professional sports organizations. Oh, did I learn something? First, let me requote Mark Twain's quote. Mark Twain said on one occasion, "I've never allowed my schooling to get in the way of my education." I want you to listen to this story because it really speaks to the fact that you can learn anywhere, anytime, if your mind is open to it. As part of my duties as a television reporter, I'm covering a Major League Baseball game at the Oakland Alameda Coliseum. At that time, it was the home of the Oakland A's. They were the home team. The visiting team was the Cleveland Indians, right? And I have this job assignment. I have one assignment by the sports director. My job was to secure an interview with former San Francisco Giants great Bobby Bonds. Oh, I watched him when I was growing up. Bobby Bonds, one of the greatest outfielders ever. Just a phenomenal baseball player. My assignment was very simple: to get Bobby Bonds to talk about his son, Bobby Bonds Jr. We're in the mid-1980s. Bobby Bonds Jr. is playing at this point in the minor leagues. That was my job. Nothing else. To get Bobby Bonds Sr. to talk about his son, Bobby Bonds Jr. Now, listen carefully. During the interview, Bobby, the dad, would say, "My son, Bobby Jr. is doing very well, but, I got another son at Arizona State that you need to check out, Barry." I didn't even listen to that. It went in one ear and right out the other. I kept pressing and pressing and pressing to talk about Bobby Jr. I could care less about this other kid, couldn't even remember his name. Postscript. Bobby Bonds Jr. spent his entire career in the minor leagues. Not bad. Very few people get to the minor leagues. Not bad. Oh, that other son, Barry Bonds, the one I didn't care to know about, the one that a lack of listening caused me to miss out on, that one, Barry? Well, Barry Bonds is considered one of the greatest baseball players of all time. Listen, 21 years in the major leagues, 7 Most Valuable Player Awards, 8 Golden Glove Awards, 12 Silver Slugger Awards, 14 All-Star appearances, the most career home runs ever, 762. The most home runs hit in a single season, 73. Here's the lesson, if it's not already obvious. I was so bent on accomplishing my assignment, I missed the assignment of a lifetime. I was so bent on following my script, I missed one of the greatest tips ever. I failed to listen to the scoop of scoops, a father, a dad, talking about the greatness of his college-playing baseball son, who in a few years would set Major League Baseball on fire. Oh, baby, right there in the Oakland Alameda Coliseum in Oakland, California, I learned a valuable leadership lesson. Here it is. Listening is far more valuable, far more essential, far more important than talking. And over my entire television career, as I look back on it now, I got far more tips on breaking news stories by listening than by talking. I didn't learn this in a classroom, but that day at the Oakland Alameda Coliseum with the late Bobby Bonds, Rick Rigsby got a PhD in listening. Maybe we need to remind ourselves to never allow our schooling to get in the way of our education. You see, this simple story poignantly makes my point that if we stop learning, we stop growing. And if we stop growing, how in the world will we ever be an effective, genuine leader, one who grows their influence, one who makes an impact? Despite our fast-paced, impressionistic world of entitlement, There really are no shortcuts to greatness. You got to pay the price. It's like what former Alabama football coach Nick Saban said on one occasion. Everybody wants to be great, but very few people are willing to pay the price. So, during this particular episode, all I've tried to do is to make the case for the basics of leadership, learning through reading, learning through listening, learning through life's experiences. Such learning has become counterintuitive in a culture that demands far less. So let me close with a perfect example from a fantastic TED Talk, not mine, no, one by Dr. Tim Elmore. The title of the TED Talk, I want you to look it up. I want you to listen to it. Here's the title: The Inverse Relationship Between Technology and Emotional Intelligence. He makes my case. Elmore says, technology isn't going away. We just have to learn to balance technology with humanity. And Elmore does this brilliantly. He offers 5 words that describe our 21st century world and the consequences that we can assume. Pay very close attention to each word and the behavioral consequences. First word, speed. We want everything fast. The inverse relationship to this, slow must be bad. Second word, convenience. All we have to do is ask Google. So the inverse relationship to convenience, hard must be bad. Third word, entertainment. I must consistently be entertained. Stop. I just heard about a USC study involving teenagers. Are you ready for this, y'all? 60% of teens use their phones while watching television. 20% of teenagers use their phones. They're on their phones in movie theaters. Now back to number 3. Entertainment. I must be constantly amused. Thus, the inverse relationship, being bored, being quiet, being still must be bad. Number 4, nurturing. I'm obsessed with safety. So as a result, I can't do such and such. The inverse relationship, risk must be bad. And then 5th, the word is entitlement. Why do I have to work for this? Thus, Elmore argues, labor must be bad. Friends, here's the postscript. Elmore's research with teachers from K to 12 reveals that the number 1 phrase teachers hear more than any other phrase from their students: this is too hard. Friends, the very elements that create authentic, genuine leadership driven by influence that makes an impact, those very elements are eroding in a way in a society that favors noise, busy, comfort, convenience, and ease. If we're motivated by speed and entertainment and convenience and ease and entitlement, chances are we're not growing. We're being entertained, but we're not being challenged. Just remember, great people do things that other people don't, and great leaders do things that other people won't, like grow and grow daily. Let's pick it up right there when we're together again. That's going to do it for this episode. Until we meet again, this is Dr. Rick, asking the most important question I can ask: how you living?
Are you ready to make an impact in your world right now? Do you want to stop existing and start living your best life right now? Dr. Rick wants to give you the first chapter of his best-selling book, Lessons from a Third Grade Dropout, absolutely free. Just go to www.rickrigsby.com/free gift to get the print or audiobook right now.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.